I'm constantly looking over my shoulder in case some toe rag is cycling on the pavement trying to nick my phone. And so it's got that bad. 40 of the 650 MPs at the House of Parliament, they wouldn't know what AI actually is. They just about know how to spell it. We live in a mobile world, and that means that the greatest brains and the wealth can move overseas really very easily. The UK's economy is at best flatlining. I think the private sector is actually in recession. In the Labour cabinet, the people who make the big decisions, not a single one of them has run a business, has sweated whether or not they can make payroll at the end of the week or at the end of the month. Hong Kong, very successful, fast-growing economy. They've got a tax code of less than 500 pages. Our tax code's approaching 23,000 pages.
What do you think about people like Tommy Robinson? Do you think they add to reform sort of case, or do you think they hinder it?
I'm hearing people leaving the country just purely on the basis of safety and crime alone, and the fact that a lot of this stuff is just not rocket science. It's based common sense.
If you were in the power, let's say I gave you and I said, right, Richard, right, tomorrow, you and Nigel, the party, are in power, what would you change? Richard, thank you for joining the podcast. I really appreciate that. We had some great conversations previously, and we've got some good mutual friends. So it's great to have you on.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for having me. And what a world we live in. I mean, just so much going on. But I was quite surprised this morning. I mean, we love technology, we love AI. But now that AI is going to replace line judges at Wimbledon, is it going too far, this technology stuff, Jay?
I know. Do you know what? I have this conversation with business owners all the time. The problem with AI is, Richard, I'm finding, it changes every single day. So how do we keep up with it? That's the question. And I've got 2 young children, and my concern is the education system, is how my kids are privately educated, so they get more exposure. I won't even go on to the fees and the 20% increases that are just ludicrous, and we're having school short of the time. But I think for me personally I feel sorry for the kids at the moment, because they're getting taught an education system which I don't think is going to be relevant, Richard, in sort of 5 years' time.
Yes, and that is a real challenge as for the whole, for all of us really, particularly the educational community. You want children to be grounded in what we know works because it worked for us historically. To do with the basics and history and who we are and our values, our culture. But then equally, we need the sort of the future to be well educated in the latest technologies, to be involved in developing it, progressing it for the benefit of mankind, and to make people, in a sense, more productive, more prosperous, better off.
Yeah, and I think Keir Starmer, I mean, I find that these policies, they come willy-nilly. We are now going to introduce AI into the school system. Well, what does that mean? I meet many teachers, but what does it actually mean? Are we going to learn AI? Are we going to do the softwares? I feel like they just say the correct things just to make the parents think, we're going to learn AI.
But here's the word. The truth is, if you spoke to about 640 of the 650 MPs at the House of Parliament, they wouldn't know what AI actually is. They just about know how to spell it.
Yeah.
And so once you drill into that sort of detail, all of a sudden they're floundering. And it's one thing using the software developed by someone else overseas. It's another thing saying, actually, we're going to grow our own young people to be the software creators and writers and developers of the future in and around all things AI. And then you talk about AI data centers. Well, there's a major problem there, which is that for all the good talk, I think very few, if any, AI data centers will actually be built and developed here in the UK because of the cost of electricity. Obviously, they consume vast amounts of electricity. Our electricity is the most expensive industrial electricity in the developed world. So those AI companies and data centers, I think they're going to go to the places where you've got the cheapest cost of energy.
Well, talking about things that can't be done here, there's 16,500 millionaires that have left the UK. Now, I'm quite passionate about this because I talk to a lot of business people and I've spent some time in Dubai. See, the thing is, I don't know if you heard of a guy called Gary Stevenson. He's gotten quite popular recently. He talks about taxing the rich, and there's no hope for the generation now we're in at the moment. But the conversation I'm having, and this is where I think government are missing the point, it's not that the wealthy are leaving, it's the sort of middle class, the just turned millionaires, and also the new business startups. Now, if you think about it, a tech company, why would they start in the UK? They'd go to Dubai or somewhere like that because of tax, the help with the tax, and also then countries are helping business entrepreneurs. So I think it's okay to say, oh, let the rich go, but it's not. It's the brain drain. It's the entrepreneurs. It's the next future job creators. We're not talking enough about this. I don't know what you think about that, Richard.
It's really important. I think a great deal about it because we live in a mobile world, and that means that the greatest brains and the wealth can move overseas really very easily. Frankly, within about a fortnight, you can be up and gone. And so all of these people who think, oh, you can just tax the rich and the super rich more, well, actually what that means is they'll all disappear overseas and you'll be left with the less well off trying to pick up the tab, and as a result become ever poorer. And it's not just the wealthy and the brightest. The other reason that people are leaving is because of just the extra regulations, the extra employment rights. There's a new bill going through under Angela Rayner through the House of Commons here in the UK as we speak, which is going to make it ever riskier employing people. So guess what? Entrepreneurs will stop employing people. And I'll give you the most extreme example, Jay, that I heard just a couple of weeks back in my constituency. In sunny Skegness, a great holiday resort for millions of people and the best value ice cream, and I'm an ice creamaholic. The biggest theme park there, Fantasy Island, in the middle of summer, they're closing for 2 days a week in holiday season because of the cost of energy and because of the cost of the employment laws and the employment costs and national insurance. So by only opening 5 days a week, it means they don't have to have an extra shift of staff. It means that an extra 30 to 35 young people, possibly on their first work after leaving school or college, are not being employed this year. That's give or take 10, 12% of their workforce. The whole thing's a complete catastrophe.
It is, Richard. My background's recruitment. I built a big business, and we've recruited thousands. And I've spoken to a lot of small businesses. And Richard, you agree with me. You're a business guy, and we'll touch on the business guys that should be in Parliament, I believe. They're telling me now. So what would happen back in the days? And I'm 46, so I've been in business 20 years. We'd say to a company, look, take a risk. Take this young person, come out of college, take a risk, see how it works out. Maybe go a week with them. I've done the same myself. And do you know what? That 1 week turns into 10 years and this person's an Excel. The problem you've got now, and you'll understand this as a business person, is I'm not taking that risk because from day one they get the rights. And I'm not saying everybody's bad, but Richard, you always got to go through a lot of people to find the best ones. The problem is Angela Rayner, she doesn't understand because she's never run a business. She doesn't understand the cost of employing, of having someone, the drain, the resources. I'm sure you understand that this is about frustration. We're stopping young people getting opportunity.
Yeah, I completely understand it. And you're hearing it, I'm hearing it every week. People are saying it's not worth that extra risk because it's all about the risk-reward ratio. And you and I suspect, live in the school of thinking where the biggest risk in life is never taking one. But equally, you take a calculated risk. And if you know that a whole bunch of people on day 2 of arriving at your workplace can suddenly claim all sorts of extra rights, claim that they can go on the sick, claim that they can go on full maternity pay or full paternity pay on day 2, you're going to say, nah, it's too big a risk. You'll outsource stuff, or you'll just take your smart, high-tech business, you'll take it elsewhere and grow it elsewhere. And that's what's happening. And that's why places like Dubai are absolutely booming. And the UK's economy is at best flatlining. I think the private sector is actually in recession. Our figures are only being propped up, frankly, by vast amounts of government spending paid for by vast amounts of government borrowing.
Yeah. And this conversation, I think, is not talked about because the way politicians sell it is, okay, we're for the people. But I was speaking to, I'm in property, like, you've been in property in the game as well. And I'm talking to on the floor construction workers, garden maintenance. And I have these conversations. I love talking. So, and these are small businesses. And there's a guy the other day, he's a gardener. He's got a guy who's helping him temporary. He goes, I can't make him permanent because I'm worried. And the problem is that young lad has not got the opportunity to get his, get on the foot on the step of the ladder, build up on it. And that's my biggest concern. And the problem is I feel the politicians are so out of touch. And do you agree with me that it's possibly because they've never run a business? And when you run a business...
Yeah, it's completely because they've never run a business. There's not a single person in the Labour cabinet, the people who make the big decisions, not a single one of them has run a business, has sweated whether or not they can make payroll at the end of the week or at the end of the month, has had to look at the P&L and the bank balance and make some difficult decisions. And what we're about is saying we need to make it easier for small businesses, traders, entrepreneurs. And the way to do that is actually really quite straightforward. Lift the VAT threshold from 90 grand, for example, to 150 grand. Get rid of things like IR35. And you shouldn't have any corporation tax on small businesses until they're earning profits of 100 grand a year, that sort of number. That way, they can reinvest the early profits into growing the business, because that's how you get more growth and more activity. And I was so sad the other day when I heard about a plumber who he had 15 lads on his books as a plumbing business doing great work in sort of Gloucestershire, Cotswolds area. It just became too much like hard work. And he just scaled right back. He said, I can't be bothered anymore. So he's back to 3. And that's now just a disaster, absolute disaster.
And I don't understand why they don't get the concept. And like you said, probably we know why, because they're not business people. And the people don't realise the government is like a business, yeah? They've got a budget, they've got to raise money, they've got to basically distribute it. And the basics of business is, come on, you need to spend less, you need to make more. And taxation, another thing. There's only so much, Richard, that even in your household, you can reduce costs. And before you just, you've got nothing else to scrape that money out from. It's all about growth. Now, reform, what would you do to grow the economy? Like if you were in the power, let's say I gave you a golden buzzer, whatever they call it, and I said, right, Richard, right, tomorrow, you and Nigel, the party, are in power. What would you change? Obviously, you've got the, how could you turn it around so quickly? My concern is, in 4 years, I don't know where we're going to be. Another 4 years of this. Yeah. And that's my concern.
And that's, none of us do. We haven't got a crystal ball. It's hard to imagine it being any better, frankly. It's quite easy to fear that it could be somewhat worse. Let's hope not. But look, you can't tax your way out of a crisis, and we are in a crisis. You've got to grow your way out of a crisis. And the way to do that is threefold. Firstly, you've got to cut the vast amounts of wasteful, unproductive government spending and council spending that we see in so many walks of life. We see it every day, and you think, oh, what a waste of money. Why are they bothering with that? It drives you nuts. And that's the key thing. And we're now controlling 10 councils. In 2 months, we're just lifting the lid on the bonnet of their spending, and we're finding some absolute horror shows. I mean, sometimes the lads just want to shut the bonnet shut. It's so scary. I mean, it's unbelievable. And the numbers are huge. So there's vast amounts that can be saved that we're going to be talking to people about over the coming months. The second thing, which actually costs nothing effectively, is to get rid of daft, unnecessary regulation. I mean, I would like any of your listeners or viewers to give me a compelling case why this thing called GDPR, which is one of the most boring, irritating nightmares ever developed in mankind, as far as I can see, that bugs us every day when you have to press accept cookies on your phone. What's the point of it? Who does it help? How does it grow our economy? It doesn't. It's a disaster. Sometimes you talk about being in the property business. When an old property is so knackered, there's no point refurbishing it. Just demolish it. Start again. GDPR. Scrap it. Get rid of it. Bin it. If you need anything on data, you could have a simple thing. You could say, folks, you can't sell anybody's data without their consent. If you want to use it internally in various divisions, that's fine. I'll give you a mad example, Jay. So in my constituency, we've got a lovely big building. Half of it is a GP surgery. The other half of it is a pharmacy. All part of healthcare, very important. They both use the same computer system. You're delighted. You think that's very sensible. So they can talk to each other and everything can work seamlessly. Wrong. Although they use the same system, it's two different modules, and the modules are not allowed to talk to each other because of GDPR. And therefore, you go to the pharmacy and there's piles and piles of old prescriptions. And you're thinking, hang on, this is the 21st century. So, yeah, there's simple things like that you just got to get rid of, and a whole bunch of others. In the city, they've got a thing called MiFID II. It's millions of paragraphs of garbage. Again, you can't tweak it or scrap a few paragraphs here and there. You've got to bin the whole lot and start again. Here's another example, right? Hong Kong, very successful, fast-growing economy. They've got a tax code of less than 500 pages. Our tax code's approaching 23,000 pages. It's 4 times the length of the combined works of Harry Potter, and a great deal less fun. So, if I want to set a challenge, how do I get a tax code of 500 pages? Is that possible? Just imagine if you didn't have to waste time employing accountants to get all the various allowances and tweaks and turns that politicians over the ages have developed and created. Those are the sort of things where we've got to have a real good look. Scrapping daft regulations not only is basically cost-free, but it is hugely growth generative, because it means you can spend your time focusing on your core product, which is developing something that someone wants to pay you for.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not like we haven't got examples. In business, if you see a company like a competitor country, let's say, and they're doing well, you think of the mystery shopper. What do? You go over there, watch what they're doing, you replicate it, but they don't want to look at places like Dubai or Hong Kong because it's going against what they think works. But come on, if something works, something works. And going on small independent landlords as well. Now, I'm a landlord. We were always taught growing up, like my parents are from India, and my dad came over, a very good immigration because we needed labourers then. My dad worked 13, 14 hours a day. My granddads were in the army, and we came over, and we were always told, work hard, build wealth, invest it wisely. So what these generation did, they invested in property. So they bought 1 or 2 properties. Many retirees that we know, Richard, that have now relying upon that. And then this Renters Reform Act has come in. Now, I'm totally for renters getting a fair deal. Nothing against that. I've rented myself when I've travelled, so I get that. But the legislation they're bringing in, the landlords I'm getting now, I'm getting properties coming to the market, and there's about 40 people to a property. And people are desperate now. It's having the opposite effect to what they're doing, and they're just not listening. And I don't understand what's happening with that. And is there anything that can be done for smaller landlords who are just relying upon that, but they can't handle the regulation because it's not running a business? It's just crazy.
And look, at the moment, the reality is that this lot they hate property wealth. They absolutely hate it viscerally. So, as you quite rightly say, we all want smart regulations, whether it's regard to obviously fire safety, sensible doors, fire doors, that sort of thing. Having a fire extinguisher, maybe a fire blanket, smoke alarms, all that's good and proper. We should all have that stuff in our homes, whether it's privately owned, whether it's our own home or rented home. We're all up for that. And there are certain things you could say, yes, okay, 2 or 3 months notice might be a touch too short for someone. So you could easily have a discussion and say, well, maybe it should be 4 months or 5 months notice if you need to get possession or something. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can tweak and adjust and find out what's the right balance between the rights of tenants and the rights of the landlord. See, I'm old enough to remember. I think I'm almost 20 years older than you, Jay. So back in the 1970s, there was a thing called an assured tenancy, and there you couldn't get someone out at all. And what happened was, and the rents were constrained by inflation. So you developed a completely separate value for that property as opposed to the value of that property with vacant possession. So it had like an assured tenancy value and a vacant possession value. And the assured tenancy value was like 30% less. And that's where we're heading with this stuff. It's complete insanity. And look, the issue is, it is about demand and supply. And if you've got, we've got our biggest population ever. It's grown by whatever it is, 10 million in 20 years. Well, if you're going to grow the size of the number of people living here, the population, then obviously you've got to build a huge amount of property in order to accommodate that. And if you don't, you carry on building a couple 100,000 units a year, you're changing the supply-demand imbalance. And that's what happened. So I literally, in the House of Commons a few months back, when we were debating this, I said to someone, this will be a disaster because you'll reduce the supply of tenanted properties. And a Labour MP, he intervened in my speech and he says, hang on, he said, what happens to that property if the landlord sells it? It's still a property, it hasn't been demolished. To which I had to educate him, yes, but it's no longer available to rent. And therefore you've taken one property out of the rent and properties pool. And therefore there's less supply of the stuff. Oh, he goes, scratching his head and sits down again. I mean, that's how clueless these clowns are. Yeah. And it's pretty depressing that they're running the show. And the reality is there for us all to see. So I think this will be such a catastrophe so quickly. They'll be left with no alternative but to adapt it if this parliament runs its full term of another 4 years from this week. Because otherwise they'll be invoking basically fixed rents, and that will just lead to even fewer properties.
Do you think they will run the 4 years more? Because obviously they're doing a year now, which
turkeys don't vote for Christmas, and I think that you can never say never, but the likelihood is it will run a fairly full term, because unless something significantly changes, and that's always possible, but if people keep getting poorer, if the quality of life deteriorates, if crime gets worse, and things like property rents keep soaring and energy bills keep soaring, we may come on to that, then people are going to want this lot out.
And what do you think about, obviously you said something could change, and obviously there's a popular figure called Tommy Robinson, who's getting a large following now on social media. And a lot of it, I think, is frustration. Like, people are frustrated. They're not these... you get the right wing, obviously, but a lot of them, when I speak to people, they're going to demonstrations because they're just frustrated, Richard. They don't know what to do. What do you think about people like Tommy Robinson? Do you think they add to reform's sort of case, or do you think they hinder it, the progress?
No, we made it very clear that Mr. Robinson is not a member of Reform, will never be a member of Reform. He does his thing. We're completely separate. Want nothing to do with him. And I've made that clear for many months, as has Nigel. And interestingly, people quite appreciate that clarity. And as our membership is soaring, our vote share is soaring, as we make it clear that we want to form the next government. But I'm absolutely clear that to do that, we've got to show people that we can make people better off. We can make business entrepreneurs stay in the country. We can make work pay as a fundamental principle. We can get more people off benefits, off welfare dependency, back into work. Work's a great thing. We should celebrate work. It's fantastic. Those of us that look forward to waking up in the morning before the alarm goes at 6, you wake at 5 and you're up and away. Great. And that's the sort of people that are looking at reform and voting for reform in droves. And so we've got to celebrate that. In the same way we should celebrate risk-taking, entrepreneurs. We should celebrate people who make a great deal of money and employ a great deal of people. That's a massive thing. Obviously, we want to encourage people to then give back to their communities on a sort of pro bono basis and help others and mentor others. That's fantastic. And that's why our key themes are around family, because families are very important. That's how children grow up best, in a secure family. Community, successful families in an area working together to improve a community, that's a great thing. And then lots of communities being successful, being prosperous. That's how you build a great country, on those three key values. And that's the message that we're essentially promoting and talking about.
Richard, how would you change? Because obviously, as well as wealth building, is safety. Now, at the moment, I don't think people feel safe. I mean, with my children, I'm always watching them. Compared to Dubai, although Dubai is like a different type of country to us, we feel safer there because they've got a law and order. Now, at the moment, every day on the news, and obviously I mentioned when we spoke last time, a friend of ours passed away in Derby in a bank on Lloyd's TSB in daytime. And if people are scared to go out, you know, no matter what we do with the economy, safety must come first, because you want that safety. That's what builds communities, isn't it? What could reform do? What could reform do?
I'm hearing people leaving the country just purely on the basis of safety and crime alone. And when I walk the streets of London, I walk as far away from the edge of the pavement, as close to the building as possible. I'm constantly looking over my shoulder in case some tow rag is cycling on the pavement trying to nick my phone. So it's got that bad. What you've got to do is create a proper deterrent. And this is, in a sense, because of the state of things, we need a police force that's led by real leaders, preferably veterans, who understand about discipline, logistics, and getting things properly organised. The frontline police officers, they've got a difficult job. Men and women, they need supporting with good technology and the knowledge that if they actually, if they catch a criminal, then it's going to be easy to process them. That criminal is going to be charged and going to be processed in rapid order. I mean, you've got some people being given a criminal case date 2 years down the track. So we've got to invest in our criminal justice system. We've got to relook at it. I've got people working on some things at the moment. You've got to build a sort of parallel track so that you know that, and every single crime has got to be investigated. So 30 years ago, there was a guy called Giuliani in New York. He had a broken windows policy. He said, if you basically repair the broken windows, cover up the graffiti, make the place look right at the basic street level, then you get a ripple up effect of respect for one's environment, respect for other people. And that's what we've got to do. But it requires a combination of leadership and deterrence. And I have an expression, which is that respect and fear are two sides of the same coin. You know, we've got to respect each other, and you've got to fear the consequences of not being respectful to someone else walking down the street. And just simple things like, actually, when you're on a train or a tube, if you want to listen to some lovely music, great. There's a thing called headphones. You don't need to blast it out so that everybody else on the tube listens to your woeful taste in music. You don't need to put your dirty shoes on the seat. That sort of thing. If you're talking to a mate on the phone, again, use the headphones. Don't have it on speaker, informing the whole of the tube. It's that sort of thing.
Good old British values. And obviously, when we grew up, we were taught them, to respect thy neighbour. The basic things that we've just lost because of, I believe, wokeness, of trying to not offend someone, but you're offending them by doing what you're doing. And this is what frustrates me. And this is what I'm trying to teach my children. Look, that's not the right way. Be courteous, think about one another. But we've lost that way. I don't know what it is, but I just feel, from when I was growing up, things have changed so rapidly that we just don't care for one another. And
I think we can get it back. I think it requires, and sometimes things have to go sort of so far beyond the realms of acceptability. I think what happened is, in the 80s and 90s, things were going well. We were being very successful. People were more prosperous. And so we became a bit complacent. And with complacency comes decadence. And you go over the crest of the hill and you suddenly start to become just a little bit more decadent, maybe a bit more idle, maybe put on a few pounds here and there. And then it's a very slippery slope downwards. And I think at the same time, we're sort of saying, live and let live. If someone wants to wear something daft or behave in a weird way, well, it's a free country, so what? No, actually, standards of respect and decency and work is, and you set that clear sort of boundary line as to what's acceptable and what's not. And I think that's what we've lost through failed leadership. And it just goes to show how quickly things can deteriorate without strong leadership. And it's at every level. You get peace through strength. The best way to guarantee peace is prepare for war. I know it's a tough thing. It sounds horrible, but that is the harsh reality. It's back to that deterrent factor. Yeah. And, in the same way that your enemies won't attack you if they know that you're going to smash them to smithereens, equally, someone won't come and nick your phone on the street when he's riding by on a bike if he knows that actually there's a camera that's going to recognize them pretty quickly. They're going to be banged up within a day, and the consequences are they might be, disappear into some penal institution where maybe there shouldn't be any Wi-Fi, maybe there shouldn't be any mobile phone signal, and maybe it should be a bit cold. And that's the reality. They might think twice again.
Yeah, there's a great podcast where Guy Ritchie from the UK went to Joe Rogan, and he mentioned about how we present ourselves. And when you wear like a suit, it's a body armor. Like if you go back 100 years and watch the old videos, even my granddads, they came from India, they'd always be like suit, tie, always looking smart. Now I'm not saying that's not for everyone, but it's just how you reflect yourself, looking smart, you're there to work, you feel better. These little things make a hell of a lot of difference. And we forgot that. We just don't want to like make an effort. We don't care. These little things play into your psycho. And I think we can get that back. We get Britain back and we'd be the power that we were. And I think we've come a long way from when my parents came and all the race riots. We've come such a long way in that way where we're integrated so well, but we've gone so far the other way. We've got to pull it back. So we're in the middle ground.
And I guess that's how markets work. Free markets will always overreach themselves unless you've got what you or I might call smart regulation. Not burdensome, daft regulation, but smart regulation that allows the market to work, for entrepreneurs to prosper, but that there's a sensible framework within which you operate of fairness and common sense. And that's the same with our sort of social attitudes and civility and respect for others. You can sometimes be a bit edgy and wear some pretty weird looking clothes. A friend of mine, I saw him, he had a very, very flowery shirt yesterday. I thought it looked as though someone had puked on him. But anyway, that was my. But that's a bit of a laugh. But there's a boundary within which we should all operate of civility and respect. And if we lose that, and I think we have lost that at the moment, then we're in serious trouble. But I think we can get it back. Yeah. It's a big effort and some proper leadership.
That's a great point about overstretching the markets. I like that, but because like you said, you don't want to stop freedom of what you want to wear, but you need to make sure, look, when you go to a business meeting, you appropriately, you're going to, whatever you're doing, just try and adapt to that. I know we're coming to the end of the podcast, but I want to touch on, obviously we can look at America. They're always a couple of years or even 3 or 4 years ahead of us. Now we've seen Trump come into power and how he's changing things. What are your thoughts on Trump? Because a lot of people in the UK will think, okay, well, that's what we're looking to bring to the UK. And people are quite happy with Trump going in power. As a business person, I'll be honest, a lot of my friends, Patrick David, Grant Cardone, they worked with Trump, interviewed him and helped him really get in power, because the more podcasts you do, which I'm thankful you do them, Richard, because that's where the reach is these days. Do you think we will be a bit like America, the way Trump's come in and changed things? Is that what you're looking for change?
Look, at the end of the day, Trump's job as president is to negotiate for America. And people may find him a bit brash. They might find him a bit unpredictable. They may say he negotiates from an extreme position. But, he's been voted in democratically by a big margin. And I think we'll be here in 6 or 12 months' time. And I think the American economy will be growing. And I think after some difficult, tough moments, I think the world will be a safer, more peaceful place, hopefully in both the Middle East and hopefully in Ukraine. That's my expectation. And and he understands peace through strength. Now, as I say, people may not like his personality, the way he goes about it. I think we can adopt the same principles of negotiating hard for the United Kingdom. And one of the reasons that the American economy is growing so fast, that President Trump understands, is because they've got cheap energy. And before we finish, I do just want to touch on this because it's so important. We cannot compete on whether it's on AI or whether it's on traditional industries like automotive, steel, oil and gas, chemical production, production of fertilizers, and more besides. Unless we've got cheap energy, we've got the most expensive electricity in the developed world. We need to use our energy treasure under our feet, oil, gas, shale gas. We need to extract it, keep our money and jobs here rather than exporting it. If we do that, guess what? We'll get a lot better off, a lot faster. It's not a coincidence, as we conclude, it's not a coincidence to remember that in the 80s and 90s, when we were growing at 2.5% to 3.5% every single year, we were had a huge oil and gas industry in the North Sea. We were exporting energy and we were getting richer. And we've still got loads and loads. We've got decades and decades and decades worth of energy treasure, and we should be using it as fast as we can.
Great. So Richard, last question before you leave. What drives you? You're a successful business guy. You come across really well. When we had a really chat, I really enjoyed it. And you've gone from business into politics. What's driving you? What's going to get you? Because it's stressful. Like you said, there's no money in politics. There's more money in business. You're very successful. But what drives you?
I think just I'm 60, nearly 61, so I've been very lucky. I've always been interested in current affairs. I always said I'd try and make some money and then see if in some way I could give something back. And, through a bit of luck and hard work and good judgment, yeah, sure, I've made some money, and I think I've got some experience to put something back. And traditionally, politicians do their stuff and things are sort of plodding along, so business folk just get on with our lives. But in reality, I sort of look around and say, well, hang on, this is a disaster zone. I've got to get stuck in. And so that's what drives me. And the fact that a lot of this stuff is just not rocket science. It's basic common sense. I'm not a rocket scientist, but I do understand that you've got to earn more than you spend at home, at work, or running a country. And, I do have a very clear view that you should run a country like you run a well-run business. Lean, mean, productive machine. That's what we need. Great
stuff. Richard, I want to thank you for your time.
Great pleasure, Jay.
I know we're going to do it in person, hopefully, when we catch up. I know you're busy, but thank you for sharing it online. And we'll do one when we meet up again.
Cheers, Jay. Thanks a lot.
So thank you for watching that video. If you want to see other videos and great guests, make sure you subscribe and like the video. So you can now head over to my website where you can see a bit of my story of building and scaling my businesses, and also all the free resources and tools which you can help you on your journey in your brand and your business. You can also subscribe on the podcast, so you can check on iTunes, Spotify, and other locations where you can find the podcast. And I look forward to catching you very soon. Thank you.